All right, welcome to New User Part 1, Learning the Basics for Open Up Resources Teachers. My name is Dawn Peterson. I'm the Director of Content and Partnerships at ASSISTments. I'll do a little bit more introductions in just a minute. Some webinar etiquette for today. Please leave your microphone on mute for the duration of the presentation. Again, we will be recording this, so we can be sharing this out with the rest of the Open Up community. But please use the chat as much as you like to share any questions, any wonderings that you have. We do have 2 chat moderators working with us today, and you can feel free to have your video on or off, whatever you feel comfortable with. This session will be a little interactive today, so if you already have an ASSISTments account, please go ahead and go to assistments.org and sign up, open up a new screen just so you can have that ready in queue for when we get our activity started. If you don't yet have an ASSISTments account or you don't have the ability to set one up at this point, if you're a Canvas user, right now you won't be able to set up. We'll talk about that in a minute, but we do have a sample teacher Google Classroom account that you can use that Carrie is going to post in the chat. So as I walk through the steps of setting up your account, just have this information on the side so that you can try it out on your own. The goal of today is that participants will learn the basics of getting started with Open Up Resources and ASSISTments using either Google Classroom or Canvas. Just a note that at this time, ASSISTments does integrate with Google Classroom or Canvas, but those are the only LMS that we integrate with at this moment. So unfortunately, if you do not have Google Classroom or Canvas, this webinar today might not be for you. But if you do want to continue to learn, whether you're using these LMS or not, the key topics of today is that we'll start with just an overview of ASSISTments. If this is something brand new to you, we'll start with getting started with an account. So I'll show you how to create your account, whether you're a Canvas or Google Classroom user. We'll walk through the steps of creating an assignment, highlighting what Open Up Resources materials we have. You'll get to experience the student experience of what it looks like completing an assignment. And then we'll touch base on how to access and assess the data reports to figure out how your class did. And we'll close out today just talking about some next steps, setting your students up for success. So I'll introduce myself one more time. My name is Dawn. I'm the Director of Content and Partnerships at ASSISTments. In my former life, which was just 2 years ago, I was in the classroom. I taught 8th grade math here in Massachusetts, and I used ASSISTments for 10 years with my students. I stumbled upon it, fell in love with it, and used it regularly for 10 years. So I am, along with Carrie, who will introduce herself in a minute, one of the biggest cheerleaders of ASSISTments. And I am so happy to be able to share my experiences with you today. Before I turn it over to Carrie, I do want to just highlight that today we have Dana Cartier from Open Up Resources with us. She'll be presenting some slides. She will be on the chat if you have any questions specifically about the Open Up Resources curriculum. Dana, you want to say hi real quick?
Sure. Hello, everyone. It's so nice to meet you. And I'm excited to learn with everybody and happy to answer any questions you have.
All right. Thanks, Dana. All right. So now I'll turn it over to Carrie, who will introduce yourself and take over the next few slides.
Hi, everyone. My name is Carrie Moy, and I'm the Program Associate here at ASSISTments. Prior to this role, actually, just this past year, I was a middle school math teacher for 12 years in Chicago, Illinois. I actually used the Open Up curriculum in my classroom along with ASSISTments, and my background is very similar to Dawn. I stumbled upon ASSISTments and just fell in love with the experience and using it in my classroom. It just changed my classroom practice entirely with Open Up, and I absolutely loved it. So I'm really excited to kind of give you a little overview of what ASSISTments is today. Don, will you help me change the next one? All right, awesome. So just to let you know of what is Assistments, it's a free formative assessment tool, and it's evidence-based, and it's forever free. It integrates with Google Classroom as well as Canvas. For me as a teacher, it just made my life so much easier when it came to assigning online from my Open Up curriculum. It saved me time because it had a content library full of resources, all of the Open Up curriculum there for me to be able to use. And using it actually fostered a growth mindset in my students. So students were able to get this immediate feedback and multiple attempts at problems, and they could use that feedback to really guide their own learning, which was amazing. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that growth mindset. And so what it did was give students regular timely feedback. So immediately when they answered, they understood if they were correct or not and could reevaluate in their work. And so that really helped, that formative data really helped kind of foster the growth mindset and increase their autonomy, because, you know, students, the more ownership you give them of their learning, the more engaged they are in class. And so for me as a teacher, I actually loved the data report. You get the data report immediately after, and I can quickly identify students ready for interventions in terms of pushing and challenges, so like they're ready for more, or students who just needed extra intervention and practice. So that data I could use to create actionable steps in the lesson, my next lesson, to meet the needs of my students. Now, if you don't believe me, like I said before, Assistments is actually a research-proven tool backed with evidence. And so we're one of 3 middle school math interventions with a strong rating, a tier 1 rating from Evidence for ESSA. And we've actually been a part of lots of different randomized control studies where it's actually shown 75% more learning in classrooms that use Assistments than classrooms that do not use Assistments. And so I think that's really important as you think about this next year and kind of thinking overall of narrowing that achievement gap and really addressing any unfinished learning. So I am one of many teachers who actually use Assistments, and it makes life easier, right? You don't need to scour the internet or try and take your curriculum and put it online because it's all there already. You actually get data informed, like you can use data to inform your instruction, and students get that immediate feedback. So that is why I was a huge proponent and Assistments user, and I know Don is as well. And I hope after this presentation, you are as well.
All right, sending it back to me, Carrie. Okay, when we talk about the typical teacher routine, we talk about it as 4 steps. So step 1 of what you're regularly doing in your classroom without Assistments probably looks like this. The teacher is going to deliver the lesson, of course, we'll call that step 0, and then starts by assigning independent practice to students. Step 2 is that students are going to complete their assignments. Fingers crossed, as always. Step 3, the teacher takes their valuable time to do the scoring and the grading and the assessment. And then step 4 is that data that the teacher gets from scoring and grading helps to inform instruction. So when we talk about the Assistments 4-step routine, it's basically just an overlay of what you're doing already in your classroom. So instead of just assigning, the teacher is going to scour our nice Assistments content library, find that Open Up content that you're used to using already, and assigning that digitally to your students right through Canvas or Google Classroom. Step 2, the students are going to complete their work online and get immediate feedback as they complete their work, like Carrie highlighted. Step 3, instead of taking all that valuable nighttime and weekend time, the teacher is going to use the time analyzing the data instead of sitting and grading. You're going to save a lot of red ink here. And step 4, the teacher now shares the data with the students and uses that data to make actionable next steps. So before we get into assigning and all the really interesting parts, we'll just make sure everyone understands how to create an account, both with Google Classroom and Canvas. Just a note before I get to demoing this is that if you're a Google Classroom teacher, in order to get a verified teacher account, you do need to have been marked as a teacher in your school's G Suite. Some teachers have no idea if this has been done yet. So if it's not, if you're running into any issues, please email us at contact@assistments.org. Carrie will share that in the chat, and we can manually verify you within 24 hours. If you're a Canvas user, you do need to have an institutional Canvas account versus the free individual teacher account. There are some steps that your Canvas administrator needs to set up prior to teachers being able to go in and assign. I'll show you what that process looks like, but we also have a user resource that Carrie can share that outlines the steps of what the Canvas admin will need to do. We're here to help also at contact@assistments.org if you have any issues with this step. So I'm going to go ahead and go live. Each step that I'm talking about today, I'm going to talk about a little bit. I'll demo it live so you can see what it looks like. Like I mentioned, we have some interactive elements, and then we'll come and review. And the slide deck will be sent out after the presentation today. So I'm going to start at assistments.org and click on Sign Up in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. You'll then be prompted to log in with either Google or Canvas. So let me start with Google. You'll be prompted to log in with your existing, let me just get this in because I always type something wrong. There we go. With your existing Google credentials that are associated with your Google Classroom account. So that's one important thing, that you do need to be generating your account with the email associated with your Google Classroom. So if your district has two emails, one might be for contacting parents via email, one that connects with Google, make sure you're logging in with Google. You know that you're logged in because you'll see your name appear in the upper right-hand corner with your account details. So I'm going to go ahead and log out and then show those same steps for teachers that are using Canvas. So again, back at the Assistments website, we're going to go to Sign Up in the upper right-hand corner and choose Canvas. Here, you're going to look up your institution's Canvas account and select that here. You can use the common name or the URL that would be provided by your Canvas administrator. Right down here at the bottom too, if you get stuck, here are some instructions that you can send to your Canvas administrator. They need to set up some scopes and different type of things on the back end before you're going to find your institution's Canvas. When you click login, you'll be prompted to log in with your existing Canvas credentials. Let me just do this real quick. I don't have a typo. There we go. And you will be asked to authorize the connection between Canvas and Assistments. And again, you know you're logged in because you see your name appear in the upper right-hand corner with your settings and account details. All right, so just to recap that real quick on the slide deck, you're going to always start at assistments.org, click on Login or Sign Up in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. You're going to choose your LMS, Google Classroom or Canvas, and then log in with your existing credentials and then authorize the connection. Just a note, the very first time that you log in, you will be asked to generate a new account. No additional information will be collected. All that's doing is agreeing with Assistments to connect the LMS and Assistments. All right, so now we're going to move on to step 1, and then we'll pause for a question break. So step 1 is teacher assigns online from an Assistments content library. So for this webinar, we're going to follow the path of a new teacher, James Wilson, who is a 7th grade math teacher who uses Open Up for his math curriculum. He's using Assistments for the first time, which may be the same case as you out there. So let's consider what he needs to do to get started. First, he needs to find the content he wants to assign from the Assistments content library. Just a note for what we have for Open Up resources. So when I show you in the demo, you're going to see that there's a nice Open Up resources button to click on. All of the problem sets that we have available in Assistments are independent practice. So you can assign these through Google, assign through Google Classroom. The students are going to get immediate feedback, and the teacher is going to get the data report that Carrie was talking about earlier. So what we have right now for Open Up materials is all of the Open Up resources 6 through 8 content. And then we've recently been adding the high school content as well. So if you have any friends or colleagues that are using the high school curriculum, next week we're actually having a session specifically for those people. And we are newly adding the high school integrated curriculum. For each one of the lessons, when available, you can assign the following: the student-facing tasks, and those are including the warm-ups, the cool-down assignments, the practice problem sets, and then the unit assessments. I'll be talking more about the unit assessments in a minute, but just a note that at this time, if you want access to the unit assessments, please email us at contact@assistments.org. All you have to say is, I'd like access to the Open Up Resources assessments. We are looking though to move those right into the curriculum folders, but at this time you do need to email and request. So one thing that we are excited to be releasing is test mode. So all of the problem sets in assessments were intended to be designed in formative mode. And what I mean by formative mode is the students are going to get immediate feedback. They will see a button that says show answer, which if they get stuck, they'll be able to access the answer. I'll talk about this more in a little bit. They're given multiple attempts to answer correctly, and they receive partial credit if they get the answer correct on the second, third, or fourth try. And the teacher is going to see a data report to see how students performed. If you're looking for more of a summative experience with the beginning of unit, end of unit assessments, we do have test mode available. You can still assign through your LMS. But the differences is that students are going to get one opportunity to answer. They're not going to get immediate feedback as they're entering their answers, and they don't see the option to show answer. The teacher's still going to get a data report to assess how students are doing. And I'll show you how to enable test mode at this time if you choose to assign in testing mode. All right, so I'm going to introduce Dana back in. For people who just showed up just a few minutes ago, Dana is from Open Up Resources, and she's going to talk about the typical Open Up lesson, and then we'll dive into the content folders and assessments. So Dana, I'm turning it over to you.
Great, thank you so much, Dawn. And as Dawn already mentioned, there are a variety of different elements that exist in assessments related to the Open Up Resources 6-8 mathematics curriculum. And these include some of the things we're about to talk about right now, which is the warm-up and student tasks. And we'll talk about a few more things in a second. So the warm-ups occur at the beginning of the lessons, and these are generally divided in sort of like two different approaches. One may be that the warm-ups are there to strengthen students' number sense or procedural fluency by asking them to do some like mental arithmetic or some algebra type things that they can do relatively quickly and easily, and so it strengthens that procedural skill and fluency. The other one is that the warm-ups could get students ready for that day's lesson. So it may remind them of a context that they've seen in the past. It could sort of bring up where they left off in a previous lesson. It could have them do some of the mathematics, the calculations that will be relevant to the lesson, but that we want to sort of get out of the way so that it doesn't interrupt their learning of what's happening in that lesson if they're focused too much on that particular calculation. So those are sort of the approaches when it comes to warm-ups. They generally take 5 to 10 minutes. And again, like they're there to start the lesson. Then there are student tasks. And in the student tasks for each lesson, they consist of like 1 to 3 activities. And each activity has a launch, a work, and a synthesis phase to it. That's really when the students are digging into all of the mathematics and learning, right? All right, great, thanks. And then we also have my chat just went right in front of my screen. I'm so sorry, hold on. Cool downs, practice problems, and assessments that you can find in assessments. The cool downs are much like an exit ticket or an exit slip. They're independent work for students. They're formative assessments, and they generally take about 5 minutes. The practice problems are distributed practice. They include problems from the lesson. They also have So they're there after every lesson that you see. Again, they review some of the stuff that happened in that lesson from those different activities and tasks. And occasionally you'll see ones that are distributed practice that are working to remind students of things that they have previously learned and keep those fresh in their mind. Additionally, there are assessments. There's a pre-unit diagnostic assessment, and there is an end of unit assessment. And occasionally there are mid-unit assessments when those units are very, very long. And so they split that up to give you an opportunity to sort of see where students are without having them go too long, to have somewhat of a summative assessment.
Great, thanks, Dana. And just a reminder that if you are looking for those assessments, email us at contact@assistments.org, but fingers crossed, towards the beginning or middle of October, those will be found right in the content folders that I'm going to show you in just a moment. In addition to the Open Up Resources material that we have available for you to assign, we also have some supplemental content. I'll just preview real quick. First is Skill Builders. Skill Builders are in-house built standalone practice problem sets targeting specific standards and skills. The way that they work is that you select the skill builder you want to assign. They are mastery based, meaning they are auto corrected, of course. And when students get 3 in a row correct, they place out of that skill. If you're looking to learn more about skill builders, because that's all I'm going to say about them today, we do have a 30-minute session coming up that I'll talk about later, where you can learn more about skill builders. We also have problem solving sets. These are just basically an extra question bank that you can assign from that are organized by grade level and by standard, where if you just need a little bit more practice for a specific content standard, you can find that there and assign to your students. And then lastly, we do have some release date tests, a big bank of them in Massachusetts and New York that you can search through and just give extra practice to students. All right, so I'm going to go live here and we will come back to this slide in just a minute, just to review. And I want to show you where you're going to find the Open Up Resources content in Assessments. So right here at the Assessments website, I'm going to click on Explore Content. And then when I look at the Open Educational Resources, I'll click on Open Up Resources. There we go. I think I had it open in 2 windows. So when we scroll down, we can see that here's the 6 through 8 content, and there's our Open Up High School Mathematics content. So when we navigate through the accordion folders, you'll see that we're organized by unit and then by lesson. And within each lesson, you have the ability to assign the practice problems. You can choose some or all to assign to your class. These should look exactly like what you're used to from the Open Up website or from the printed materials. We have all the student-facing tasks. Again, the warm-up is built right into this problem set. And then we have the cool downs to assign. Another way that you could explore our content is by searching by code or description. So if you are looking for some specific practice in a specific standard or skill, you can find that. Let me see here. I want to find one that I've been using. There we go. So if I'm looking for extra practice on inequalities, I'm going to type that code in. You can see that in the entire Assessments content library, there's 173 problems. But if you are looking to just assign from Open Up Resources, we can put a filter on here. And then you can actually curate your own problem set aligned to that standard. So those are the 2 ways that you can find content within Assessments. So just to recap, you can navigate the folders in the content library, select problems to assign, and I'll talk more about assigning in a minute. Or you could go over to the search by standard box, either type in a word, a description, or the skill code if you have that common core skill code, and then you'll find all the problems and you can filter by Open Up. All right, so we're going to take just a 3-minute break right now. And what I'd like you to do is start at assistments.org and just take a couple minutes to explore the content library, search by standard, see if there's any questions, wonderings, or noticings that come up. That way you have a couple minutes to kind of just debrief everything we've talked about, and then we'll have a question break next. So I'm going to start my timer now. And feel free to just open up a new window, assistments.org, and just take a peek at what we have and share any questions in the chat. We'll see you in 3 minutes. All right, just another minute to explore and post any questions. I saw some questions in the chat that I will make sure that I address as I'm demoing the next step. All right, great. Carrie, any questions that are coming in?
Not on the content library yet.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so let's check in on James. So James teaches with Open Up, like you, if you're here with us today, and is clear on how to access the aligned problem sets in assessments. So now he needs to know how to assign. So again, I'm going to go out here and I'm going to demo how to assign both in Canvas and Google Classroom, and make sure everyone is comfortable with that step. And then we'll pause again for questions. So if you have any questions as we're going through this, please don't hesitate to ask. All right, so here I am. I'm logged in with my Google account, and I'm going to navigate to the Open Up Resources, Grade 7, Unit 2, Lesson 2, and I'll look at the practice problems. Now, there's several problems in here. I don't want to assign all of these to my class right now, so I'm just going to uncheck Select All, and then make a selection of the problems that I do want to assign. So I'm just going to check off the box to the right of the problem, and that's going to allow me to select just a few questions. All right, so at this point, I have the two options. I can assign to class right now, which I'm going to do in just a moment, or save to my problem sets. If I'm doing some pre-work, if I'm doing a little bit of planning, I just want to set everything up to be able to assign when I'm ready, you're going to want to save to my problem sets. So I'll choose a title. I might call this Tuesday Independent Practice. Sorry for my typos, everyone. Independent practice, there we go. And I'm just going to create and save to my problem sets. When I do that, that's going to save to my problems over here on the left. I can now add additional problems if I wish, or it's basically just queued up. So when I'm ready to assign, I can just assign at that moment. So I'm going to go back, and probably most of you out there are just ready to assign to your class in the moment. So if that's the case, again, I'm going to go right to the problems, select the problems that I want to assign. Scroll on down, find those problems. Oh, sorry about that. I'm going to uncheck this one here. And there we go. So I'm just going to assign to class. Now, I saw that there were some questions coming in about how to archive last year's classes if you're already an assessments user, or how to add or remove students if they come in late or your class rosters change. So I'll go through that right now. So you have the option to change the name of the assignment. So if I do want to change this to Tuesday work or something like that, period A, that's up to you. You're going to choose your LMS. You're going to first import the classes that already exist in Google or Canvas. So this step is going to be regardless of what LMS you're using. So I've already imported my classes, but there will be a checklist, and you'll import the classes, and then you'll want to sync. Synchronizing is going to remove from this list any classes that you archived or removed from your LMS. So if you have your 2020-2021 class and you want to get rid of that, as long as it's been archived or removed from your LMS, when you synchronize, that's going to update, and it'll also update your rosters and classes that exist in Google or Canvas. So again, first time you're going to import classes, make sure you check off all the classes you want to assign to, and then you're going to synchronize, and then hopefully you'll see all the classes that you're hoping to see here. You have the option to assign to one or multiple classes at once. I'm just going to choose one. One thing I want to show you real quick is how to turn on test mode. So let me just open up a new window here. So if you're looking to assign something in test mode, currently you'll need to go into your settings. Let me just start over and do that a little bit slower. So up here on the right, you're going to look at your settings. Under preferences, no, excuse me, under feature settings, you're going to enable test mode. This will be something that within the next month or so will automatically be turned on for everyone. But at this moment, you do need to click enable test mode. And then when you're assigning, you'll see it as an option here. And you can toggle that on or off, depending if you want a formative experience or the summative experience that I described. Couple more things is you have the option to change the problem order. So linear order means the problems are going to show up in the order they are in the assignment, and you're used to an open up curriculum. Random order will give all students the same problems, only in a random order. And then student choice will show students all the problems in the problem set you assigned, and they'll get to pick and choose which problems they want to work on. I'm going to leave linear for this problem set. And then you also have the option to set a release or due date. Those are completely optional. And once you're done making all these selections, you'll assign. And fingers crossed, you'll get a nice message that it was assigned successfully. And let me just show you in Google where that assignment's going to show up. So again, I'm still logged in my teacher account. Once I update, you'll see that assignment shows up right in the stream and also in the classwork tab. In Canvas, all those steps are basically the same exact thing. You'll choose Canvas as your LMS, and then in in Canvas, the assignment's going to show up like so. So click the following link to complete the assignment or view results, and students will click on this, and you're also going to click on this as one way to access the data report. So coming back over here, to assign, you're always going to start at Explore Content. You're going to find and assign the content you want, whether it's just by navigating the folders or searching by standard. You have the option to save to my problem sets, which allows you to build custom problem sets and also do a little bit of planning for later. The assign time options include changing the assignment name, which is optional, choosing your LMS. Again, importing and syncing is important as you're getting started to make sure you have the right classes available to assign to. You can set up test mode if you want to give something in that more summative experience. And the problem order is linear, random, or student choice. And then release and due date are also optional categories. So we're going to take about 3 to 5 minutes just to give you the option to try assigning something, to make sure that you understand what my problem sets is. So if you do have an assessments account, you can go ahead and just open a new window and kind of play around with that. If you do not have an assessments account, you're welcome to use the login that we shared earlier in the webinar. Carrie can share that again if she has a minute, but you're just going to log in with a Google account and use the login and password that Carrie is sharing now. So again, just a little break. We're going to do about 3 minutes just so you can play around, try assigning to my problem sets, try assigning to your class, and then post any questions if you have them. So the time starts now. And again, share any thoughts or wonderings in the chat. I'm seeing a question come in the chat, so I'll answer as people are playing around. Someone asked, how do I know if it was successfully assigned? You'll see after you assign, you'll get a message that the problem set was successfully assigned. You'll be able to go to your LMS and actually see the assignment show up in your stream or assignments list in Canvas. And you'll also be able to view that assignment in the My Assignments tab on the left-hand side of your assessments account. Feel free to post any other questions and wonderings as you're playing around. And for those of you who used assessments last year, I hope you're enjoying some of the new features that we're overviewing today as well. All right, about 30 more seconds to play around, and then we're going to move on. All right, and I'm not seeing any questions come in, but please feel free to share any questions that you have. All right, so we're going to move on to step 2, where we're going to show you, and you'll get to play the student and get immediate feedback as students work. So checking back in on James. James wants to know what his student's experience is going to look like in assessments so he can best support positive student culture around the platform. So right now we're going to do, I think we're just going to do 3 minutes because we're running just a few minutes behind. But what I'd love for you to do is Carrie's going to share a link in the chat. You do need to be logged in as a verified teacher for this piece of the activity. So if you are logged in with your own account, that's great. If you haven't yet set your account up yet, you're going to make sure that you're logged in with the sample teacher account that Carrie shared a minute ago. So I'll walk you through and then I'll come back here what you're going to be doing. So you're going to click on the link that Carrie's sharing, which brings us to a demo problem set. This is going to be available to you in any problem set as long as you're logged in with a verified teacher account. What I'd like you to do is click on the triple dot next to select all and preview problem set as a student. Again, this functionality is only available if you have a verified teacher account. Obviously, we don't want students going in and previewing all of the assignments and getting the answers. So once again, click that link in the chat. I'm seeing someone, if someone has a Canvas, just go ahead and click it here as well. And you can go ahead and log in with the Google for now if you don't have an account, but click the triple dot and preview problem set as a student. So what I challenge you to do is complete the problem set as a student, share any wonderings, noticings, or questions that you have, and then I'm going to walk you through what the entire student experience looks like and answer any questions there. So I'm going to set the timer for 3 minutes. Hopefully that's enough time for a handful of questions, and share any questions that you have, please. All right, about 30 more seconds or so. I'll just show how to get into student preview one more time because someone's asking about it in the chat. So in any problem set, when you click on the triple dot right next to where it says select all, you have the option to preview as student. So when you choose that option, you'll get a pop-up in a new tab, which brings you into the student experience. Anytime you want to preview as student, that's going to be right there at the triple dot. All right. So if you didn't have a chance to finish, please go ahead and continue. So I'm going to start by showing you how students are going to access their assignment and what that student experience is going to look like. So super easy for students to get into assessments since they're going right through their LMS. So I'm going to start with Canvas. Students are going to log into their Canvas accounts as they normally would for any of the classes that they have. They're going to click on the assignment and click on the assessments link within. When they click on this link for the very first time, they will be prompted to log in with their Canvas credentials. They will be asked to authorize each time that they log in. That's a security setting for Canvas that we couldn't get around. And again, the first time they will, oh, sorry, I got into a completed one, but the first time that they log in, they will be asked to create an account. No additional information is going to be asked of them. It just, same as the teacher account, joins their assessments and LMS together. So the student's just going to click on that link and they'll be brought into the student experience. In Google, the student is going to see the assignment show up in their stream and also the classwork tab. They'll click the assessments link within. Again, they may be prompted, depending on their device's settings, to log in with their pre-existing credentials. They'll be asked to create their account, and then they'll be brought into the student experience, which is, these questions should look familiar. They're the ones that you just previewed. So I'm going to walk through some different scenarios of what type of feedback the student is going to get during this formative mode. So for this question, we can see, we can see how many questions there are assigned on the left here. The student's going to enter their answers for each individual question. If they get it right on the first attempt, they're told they're correct, they get this nice green border, and they can move on to the next problem. For this second part, if the student does not get it right on the first try, they're told that it's incorrect, and they can try again. This really leans into growth mindset, like Carrie was talking about earlier, because the student can persevere, rework, and if they get it right on the second or third try, they still get that positive feedback and they move on. There are some problems definitely where students may have no idea how to do a problem. Maybe they were absent, or I had 8th grade students, so maybe they want to see how many digits fit into that box. Regardless, some students are going to be stuck. That's why we have this show answer button here on the right. When a student presses show answer, they'll be given the answer so that they can type it in to move on. This button cannot be disabled. The purpose is that if a student cannot move on with the problem, they have the answer so they can move on. It will be very apparent on the report who pressed that button so you can deal with those students individually. We do have a number of open response questions in the Open Up curriculum, which means students may need to explain their answer. They may need to create a table of values, use our math editor, or upload a picture of their work. I do want to highlight that this is a little bit more messy right now, uploading a picture of their work, but I do want to highlight in just a moment that we have a new feature coming out with assessments where students can actually use a little drawing pad or have a much easier way to upload their work into this answer box. Regardless, for open response questions, students are not going to get immediate feedback just because of the nature of an open response question, but the teacher will have the option to go in and score on a 4-point scale if they wish and leave additional written feedback. And there are some questions that students might really struggle on, and it might take them 6 or 7 tries, or 3 tries. Sorry, I got it right by accident. But again, regardless of how many attempts it takes them, they're still going to get correct feedback when they get it right. When the student is complete, they will see a student report, which overviews how they did. They can review the questions by clicking this link over here on the left, and they'll get to see their score here. All right, so just to recap that, students are going to access their assignment right through their LMS. They will be asked to create an account, but no additional information is going to be collected. Student gets to see how many questions are in the problem set. They'll see one question at a time, and they're going to get immediate feedback as they work. The feedback that they get is corrective feedback. So they'll be told, you're right, you're wrong, or if they press show answer, they will be presented with the answer. And this is intended for students who are genuinely stuck, who wouldn't be able to complete the problem set without the support. I just wanted to show you real quick what the student choice view looks like. So if you do assign in student choice, students are going to see all of the problems in that problem set and will be able to click in and start the problems that they want, doing them in the order that they choose. Just a note that once the student enters a problem, they do have to finish that problem before they can select another problem to work on. So it's a little bit more similar to a lot of online state testing portals. And the report that students receive, the student report, is going to allow students to review problems if you want them to rework their problems or do corrections. Students will get to see their score compared to the class score. And then this is where they're going to view any open response scoring or feedback that the teacher leaves. All right, so I'll pause here. Carrie, any questions that are coming in that I can help to answer?
Sorry, nope, not yet. Oh, let's see. Finding an assessment assignment on Canvas. Where does it go in Canvas?
Yeah, I see that. So just to clarify, Canvas, the integration we used to have in Canvas was an external tool that you had to load in and find the assignments in some other place. We have much improved since then. So for Canvas teachers that are assigning, you're going to assign exactly like I just showed. You'll select Canvas. When you assign, you'll choose the classes you're assigning to. And in Canvas, the assignments are going to show up right in the assignments tab. If you're having trouble with Canvas, it may be due to that setup process. So the Canvas administrator does need to set up something for the entire district for any teachers to be able to use the integration. So anything that comes up, please email us at contact@assistments.org and we can help that to get set up. All right. And yeah, go ahead, Carrie.
Like, could you show how you can see the student report? So like how students are able to see their report.
Absolutely. And I actually just showed it by accident in Canvas. So once students are done with their assignment, they will automatically be given the student report. If they want to access their student report at a later time, again, once they finish the assignment, when they click back into that same assessments link, they'll be brought, once they authorize for Canvas. Oh, sorry, I'm in the wrong account. I am in the teacher account. So here we go. In the student account, when they click the assessment for what they click the assignment that they've already completed, they'll be brought right to the student report. So I'll show you in a minute just how to leave feedback, but this is where the student's going to receive feedback for any open response questions. All right, so let me get back over here and we're running. Geez, there's so much I want to tell you guys, so I hope I'm not rushing you through this, but I want to make sure we get through everything. So I'm going to show you how to get to data, but please feel free to share any questions and we'll have some additional question breaks. So step 3 is the teacher analyzes data instead of grading. So James understands the student experience, how to assign. Now he needs to learn how to interpret the resulting data he's going to receive in the assessments assignment report. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, guys, because in a couple weeks, we are going to be offering part 2 of this webinar, which really dives into the data. We're going to talk about scenarios of what kind of data is going to inform what type of next steps in your classroom. So today's just going to be a brief overview of the report. There are 2 ways to access data in assessments. One is right through the assessments account. So if you log into assessments, excuse me, I'll just close a few of these windows. So if you log into your Assessments account and click on the My Assignments tab, you're going to have a list of every assignment that you assign in Assessments. You can filter by class, you can filter by status, and you can sort by release or due date. Once you find the assignment that you want to view data for, you're going to click on the title. You'll get to see at a glance how many students completed the assignment, how many problems were assigned, if there was a release and due date, and any standards that were aligned to that problem set. And when we click on View Report, that's going to open up the data report that you see. The other way to access the data is right through your LMS. So when I click, I'll start with Google Classroom. When I open the assignment and click on the link, that's going to bring me right to the data. So just a note, when the students clicked on this link, they were brought into the student view because they're students. When the teacher clicks on this link, they're going to be brought to the assignment report. So you can see only one student did this right here, but we'll talk more about the assignment report in just a moment. In Canvas, it's going to look exactly the same, and I accidentally did it for you a moment ago. So when the teacher clicks on the link right within the Canvas assignment, they'll be asked to authorize, because Canvas users are, and then they'll be brought into the data report. So an overview of the assignment report, and then we're going to give you a few minutes just to play around with it, is you'll be able to see student progress cards. Oh, let me go live here and show you this. That'll be a little bit more exciting for you all. So on the assignment report, you'll see student progress cards up here at the top. If you open those up, you'll be able to see individually what students haven't started, what students are in progress and when they last worked on the assignment, and then what students have completed the assignment and when they've completed. If I scroll down, I get to see the performance summary. So this is going to show me at a glance for each question I assigned, number of students who got it correct eventually on their own, or right here, students who had to press show answer who got it incorrect. If I scroll down a little bit further, this is where the detailed report exists. So if I look at each column, each one of these X's represents a student name. We get to see the average score for the entire class, the average score for each individual question assigned. Over here, the last column is total time spent on the assignment. Right down here, I get to see one of my favorite things, the common wrong answers. If there was any common wrong answers given by students for that question, which we've set a cap of 3 or more students who answered incorrectly, that's going to be identified right here in this column. This is the incorrect answer and the percent of students who answered incorrectly who said that wrong answer. One thing I want to show you up here is in these options with the eyeball, this is where you can hide or unhide names. And if I do that, you'll see some additional options here. So I can look at my student names and I can see their individual scores. If I want to dig just one level deeper, let's see, maybe I'll go into student 15 who scored a 35. If I click on the student's name, that brings me to the student details report. This gives me a play-by-play for this problem set to see exactly what students answered, how much time they spent, and this gives the teacher a little bit more information to figure out what the student's thinking was. Not a level you have to go to every time with every student, but it's definitely good to have it there if you need it. All right, one other thing, and then I'll give you a little bit of time to play around with the report, is when we're looking at open response questions. So when we have open response questions, you are going to see, let's see, I think I scored all of these, but you're going to see, assess answers here. So when I click on this up here at the top, actually, it's not showing me how to get to this. I think I'm looking at the wrong one. Let me see. I'm in the wrong problem set, I think. So anyway, when you see that there's something to assess, you can score on a 4-point scale. Carrie, maybe you can share the user resource there because I can't find it on this incorrect report. But Carrie will share how to score open response questions. And that is also something we'll be talking more about in New User Part 2 in just a few weeks. One other thing, and then I'll answer some more questions, is this is the problems view of the report. We also have the standards view of the report. So if you have standards-based grading in your classroom or at your school, this report will tell you for each standard that's been tagged, how many questions there were in the problem set you assigned and how the student performed. So there was 4 questions aligned to this skill, 1 question aligned to this skill, and so forth and so on. All right, so again, just to recap, we're going to be talking more about this at part 2, but on the assignment report, you get to see the progress cards, which give you an overview of completion, the performance summary, which gives you at a glance, might give you the information you need just to see which questions you want to review, and the details report, which dives deeper into how each individual student performed. We get to see the common wrong answer if available, individual score per student, the class score on the whole assignment, the class score by individual problem, and then the number of attempts per student. And then the standard report is going to give you the standards aligned view of how students performed. So checking back in with James, James noticed that the assessments assignment report contains so much detailed actionable data. So he needs to know basically where to start given he has limited time. So just a couple suggestions on where you could start is one is with the class average. The class average quickly assesses whole class understanding on the assignment. The individual problem average identifies which individual problems are going to need whole class review. So you're not asking students who needs to go over question 1, who needs to go over question 2. Assessments gives you that data. The common wrong answers on the report will help you facilitate whole class discussions around common misconceptions. I really like doing my favorite no activities in my classroom using the common wrong answers. And then the individual student score by problem or standard is going to help teachers identify students who are going to be in need of small group reviewing or reteaching. So I am so sad to shave this down because I want to give everyone a chance to look at the reports, but Carrie's going to share a link in the chat. And it's just a PDF doc. You're not going to get into the live report today, but what I challenge you to do is just to click on that link. Let me go ahead and show you and just play around with the report, look at the different views, see if you have any questions that we can answer for you today. And again, part 2 is something you're definitely going to want to sign up for or watch in our webinar library because we're really going to get into different scenarios. So again, just play around, take a look, see if you have any questions that we can address before you leave us today. And I'll set the timer for 3 minutes and then we're going to start our wrap up. And I'll answer these questions as I go, just in the interest of time. If you didn't put a due date, can you go back and edit it? Yes, as long as the date has not passed, you can modify release dates or due dates, again, as long as the time has not passed. If you accidentally assigned due, today at 3 o'clock and you meant it to be tomorrow at 5 o'clock, you will have to reassign in order to change that date. And another note on due date, if you set a due date, students will still have access to the assignment past the due date, but it will be marked on the report that they did it late. So that's just one thing to note as well. All right, we'll do another 30 seconds or so. And it looks like there are some assignments in the, some teachers in the group who have used assessments before. So again, if you have any questions, if you want clarity on anything, we're happy to help. And one person's asking about changing the dates. So if you go right into your assessments account and go to my assignments, let me see, I think I have one ready here. Once you find that assignment that you've already assigned, you can edit the details. Sorry, my computer's going a bit slow, so I'll just wait for that to load, but you can change the details right here from my assignments. I'll show you, there we go. So if you click over to the right of the assignment name and edit assignment, you'll then have the opportunity to change, again, as long as it hasn't been released. Notice that this has been released already, so I can't modify the time. All right, guys. So again, that was just a little teaser of the report. We hope to see you when we have part 2, and we'll really dive in a little bit deeper. So I'm going to keep on trucking so we can make sure we let everyone out of here on time today. So we're going to talk just a little bit about incorporating assessments into your daily Open Up Resources routine. You have to choose what that entry point is going to be. Don't feel like you have to come in assigning every single piece of the Open Up curriculum in assessments. Think about how assessments is going to work for you. So one of our recommendations, aligned with the kind of progression, the lesson progression in Open Up, is that you could assign the warm-ups through assessments to provide opportunity for quick data. So giving those assignments, getting a snapshot of how students are doing or what their understanding is. Even if it's an open response question, you don't have to do that scoring. You can just see what students know and then modify in the moment. You could assign the student tasks through assessments to monitor student progress through an activity or to address common misconceptions in real time. The assessments data report updates in real time. You just refresh and you have that student information so that you can stop your class, you can address misconceptions in the moment or address students who need a little bit more support. Your Open Up lesson with assessments, you may decide to use in-class student tasks or practice problems collaboratively. And I'm going to show this real quick video, just an example of how one of our assessments teachers has used assessments in class with devices, because we are all saying thank you for letting us back in the classroom. So here's just one example of how the data can be used in real time.
Winner or not, 4 liters of orange juice. How many orange juice does he have? I think wait, you can get it. Okay. Well, I think what she was teaching us, she said that in milliliters, it's 100 less than the liters. No.
Wait, hold on a second. I think it's 1,000.
Me too. So that means it's 1,000 and not 400. What isn't it 100 for centimeters? I think it's for milliliters.
No, for centimeters, I'm pretty sure it's 100. For milliliters, it's 1,000.
Yeah. You can put in 400 and we can put in 4,000. Yeah, I think it's 100, so we can just do it as 400. Okay. Oh, 4,000 is right. Yeah, okay. I got 4,000. Maybe all are correct.
I love watching those kids talk about math in that video. So again, it really does promote students working together and allows the teacher to work with students who actually need a little bit more support rather than going around and telling students if they're correct or not. And last, a couple more, is you could finish lessons by assigning a cool down to assess whole class understanding or individual student understanding. And this data can be used to highlight reteaching opportunities. And lastly, leverage any problems you didn't assign in class as independent practice. This will allow you to get data to inform what you're going to be teaching during the next class. All right, so a couple tips for getting students started, and then we will wrap up and get you out of here in the next 5 minutes. So James understands the basics of assessments, but he needs to get his students comfortable with using the platform. He is not on his own. Assessments has provided a variety of tips and resources to set students up for success. So number one is share our student tutorials for getting started with assessments. Prior to the first time that you assign, you may want to just introduce our assessments tool. And again, this slide deck will be sent out so you can access these links, but we have videos walking students through where to get their assignment, how to generate their account, and what that experience is going to look like as they use assessments with Open Up resources. Step two is make the first assignments low stakes. So we like to say, make sure students, I'm sorry, we don't like to say this, but make sure students understand the platform so they're not really struggling over the platform and they can focus on their math. So we have created some student practice assignments. They're just real basic getting started assignments, showing students what the feedback looks like, letting them interact with assessments, aside from what they're doing in their regular lessons. Step three is decide on it and introduce a clear protocol for open response questions. We have created an open response tutorial, which basically shows students all of the options that they have when they're submitting their work in an open response question. How to use the table, how to use our math editor, all the different tools that they have. And I want to show you real quick, we're really excited that we have a new thing coming out for students to a new feature where students can insert their work, insert an image. They could capture an image if they are taking a picture. But the one I'm most excited about is that we have a drawing tool. This is going to be coming out next month, but students will be able to draw, they'll be able to type, they'll be able to create shapes. And this is a real easy way for students to be able to submit their work they're doing in class. So just a teaser of that. And lastly, make clear to students how you're using the score in assessments. We are mostly a formative tool like we've been talking about, and we encourage students to see this as low stakes practice by not using the score as a grade. And we do have some useful resources on how teachers, especially Carrie when she was in the classroom, created a rubric to kind of give full credit, partial credit, or no credit based on student effort in their work. So definitely something that you want to think about. All right, Carrie, anything coming in at this point? Because I'm going to wrap up quick and get people out of here.
I think you're good to wrap up. I don't see anything.
Okay, great. Thanks, Carrie. All right, so wrap up and next steps. Today, we talked about creating an account, creating an assignment. You get to see the student experience. We talked real quickly about the data reports and accessing and assessing class performance. A couple entry points to consider on how you're going to start using assessments in your Open Up classroom, and then some tips and suggestions for getting started. Carrie is going to share a link in the chat. We are a completely forever free tool for teachers, so the feedback that we get for our webinars is really helpful and helps to inform what we do in the future to support teachers. So it is an Airtable link. So if you click on that link, please make sure to choose the 9/14 webinar titled New User Webinar for Open Up Teachers. So I think it's the one that starts with OUR. So take a minute to do that while I finish wrapping up. So our new user webinar part 2, which I've been referencing, is on October 5th. So that gives you a little bit of time to play around with assessments, see if you have any questions before we really talk about the data. If you can't attend that webinar, we always post our webinar recordings in the assessments webinar library. So you're welcome to go there as well if you can't make it. We do have some other upcoming webinars that I want to highlight. On the 21st of this month, we have 5 common implementation challenges in our solutions. That's a 30-minute session. I mentioned Skill Builders earlier, another 30-minute session coming up in October. And then our first Amplifying Teacher Voices targeted webinar later in October, which talks about using assessments to address unfinished learning. So you can click the link here, or Carrie shared it in the chat to register for any of these upcoming webinars. On our website, we have some great resources. I'm just going to point you to our Help Center, which is where you can find our user resources, our FAQs. That's where you'll find our webinars. So just a place to explore and find answers if you need quick answers. In addition to our Facebook user community, we'd love to see you join there. And I think Carrie's going to put that link in the chat. But please keep in mind that anything that comes up, you can always email us at contact@assessments.org if you need help with an issue, with an error, or just have a question about using assessments in your classroom. And thank you to Dana for joining us today and presenting some slides and being available. If you have questions specifically about the work that Open Up Resources is doing, here's their website, here's their social media handle. And then if you have any questions specifically for Dana or about Open Up, you can email her at dana.cartier@openup.org. And again, this will be in the slide deck that we share tomorrow morning. All right, and I am so sorry we are at time, so I would love to hear from you. If you have any next steps that you want to share, please share in our Facebook user community or in your follow-up response. And thanks for joining us. We hope to see you in a few weeks at part 2, and please feel free to share the recording with any colleagues that you have once you get that follow-up. So I'll send everyone away. Have a wonderful evening or afternoon, depending on where you are. And we'll see you next time.